Hello and welcome to BetterTech. My name is Peggy Tsai, and I'm excited to join you as the new host of BetterTech. With a rich history in data and technology across various industries, I'm here to help navigate the dynamic world of technology that's redefining our future. Having contributed to conversations in the podcasting realm before, I look forward to bringing these experiences to BetterTech, where we connect with the brightest minds in the industry. Together, we'll uncover insights that drive success and innovation at the highest levels. And today, we are diving straight in with a guest who stands at the crossroads of innovation and business. Hi, Shane. Welcome to BetterTech. It's a pleasure to have you here today, where we're going to be talking about building a secure IT ecosystem. Can you please give a brief introduction about yourself and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, I really appreciate it. Happy to help. So I am the CISO and Vice President of Infrastructure and IT for Conductor. So Conductor really is, marketing as a force for good. We help customers with content that helps people get answers to questions they're asking and get found on Google or whatever search engine there is. So customers that are searching for hiking or questions about certain things they use every day, we help our customers with content that helps them answer those questions.
Wow, that's a great industry to be in as well, Shane. So can you highlight some of the recent trends in IT and security that you think are particularly noteworthy for Conductor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't really talk about like security or IT without talking about AI or machine learning, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. I think it's not only like the hot kind of buzzword out there, but it's actually really being added to applications. Every application you use today, they're releasing a new feature, they're announcing that feature, they're marketing that feature related to AI. So they're being added as kind of a sidecar or like enhancing how you do work within that collaboration tool. So for companies, that is both opportunities and challenges. Yeah, we can talk about that a bit more. I think the other kind of noteworthy things happening right now are remote work still. Like there's obviously a discussion of what that hybrid looks like, but I think over the last several years, the increase of remote work has obviously have some security challenges. It has some collaboration challenges that we have to think through. And I think there's like another big thing that we should talk about is just the explosion of data that's happening, especially around sensitive data. So as you interact with all of your money devices, you're sharing information, all of your apps. As we move more into this hybrid world, we're sharing information, who we are, we're signing up for different systems. That I think companies really need to focus on understanding their data, segmenting the data, and classifying what is sensitive or not, and prioritizing how they address that.
So I love that point about data. It's certainly, I think everyone has seen the explosion of data. Mm-hmm. Can you give an example, perhaps, of where AI and automation or even RPA has impacted, or what you're doing using those new technologies inside your company or inside security protection?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like our company specifically, obviously, we're increasing our investment in data. That's how we give and AI tools, how we give our customers really great insights into where they should focus their time, what type of content people are asking questions about, how do we get that content prioritized and found by the right customers, how to get customers for life by giving them great value in that content, right? So AI just enhances that, kind of increases, shortens the learning curve for those customers. So we use it even internally. Our data is growing. I think just in general, though, the increase of AI means that we're collecting like an exponential amount of data points. So we already had a lot of data, not just here, but in every industry. And you need a large amount of data to train the AI models. And so with that and capturing that data, storing that data, there's a much larger amount of data that will need to be stored, will need to be shared, because most people aren't building their own AI model. They're using ChatGPT or OpenAI or some other tool or service that they're interacting with, since every company now has a feature that has AI. And that data sharing has its like challenges, like the data, like understanding what we can share, what's private, what's not private. I think that there's a lot of companies that don't have not have thought about the right policies they need to implement around this. They don't understand the wide scope that this means. So it's not only just the company and your products that you're releasing to the market, that your customers will consume, the type of data they're going to share with you that you have to make sure you understand and it's protected, whether it's private or sensitive. It's also your own employees, the people that work at your company. So whether you're using collaboration tools like Zoom has its own kind of AI aspect and summary, like we're using now. It's summarizing the meeting. There's things that are like that for every tool that consumers or employees are using, whether that's with Slack or with GitHub. It's part of how we live, and we need, like, companies really need to focus and understand the scope of that and create policies to keep both their employees' data safe as well as their customers' data safe.
Thank you, Shane. I think that really exemplifies how AI is not only able to protect us better and faster, but also it's also evolving with the way that we work as well. So certainly with a lot of the companies today are increasing their adoption of cloud services. Mm-hmm. What do you think are the key security considerations that organizations should be aware of in today's environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think historically, people have thought of cloud saying like, okay, I have my applications, I'll extend them from an on-prem instance, a data center, to Azure or AWS or GCP, and then I'll have my application running there. It'll be all-encompassing. Maybe it'll talk back to your on-prem for some things, but really the customer is on the other end of that cloud. Like, you're producing a product, a website, a service, an API, and there's a customer on the other end of that. I think increasingly now it's just not a single cloud, but it's multi-cloud. You don't just have your data and your application stored in Azure or AWS, but you're in GCP as well. And so those applications are now extending across clouds. And then you have kind of cloud as a service, that is, or database as a service. Like, those types of companies have really risen in the last 3 to 4 years. Snowflake is a great example, or Tableau or Adobe, where they have real rich integrations with your systems. And now you're not just in your own cloud, your own public cloud like AWS, but now you're extending out to these services. And so we have to really be careful and understand how we're connecting to these services, whether it's multi-cloud or through some vendor that we're interacting with, making sure that that network connectivity and those links are really strong. And also, it's not just scoping policies from your own employees and what they can access, or your application that can access, but then these interconnectivity pieces, scoping that. So it really is that these vendors or these multi-cloud connectivities are only accessing data that they need to access to reduce your risk and exposure. So I think it's really taking a holistic view and not just looking at these little pieces separately, because they are connected, and one weak link affects your entire network now.
So in your role as the CISO, who else in your organization do you see as important players to ensuring that these type of security policies and holistic program is really put in place?
Yeah, so I mean, we have great partnership in our organization, not just across the chief people officer or the senior vice president of engineering, product, but the entire C-suite really are accountable to help make sure that we make the right decisions, whether we're releasing new products or we're rolling out a new collaboration tool internally, to understand what is that connecting to outside of our network, how are we using that, and making sure we have the right policies in place. So I may lead some of that effort, but it really is an internal collaboration to make sure that happens.
Okay. Certainly in the news, we're hearing a lot about different emerging cybersecurity threats. We've all been perhaps personally attacked through one of the retailers that we work with, or employers are. How do you think organizations should be prepared to defend against these type of attack vectors?
Yeah, I mean, so there's I think there's some new things coming up, and then there's some old things that are still working really well for the bad actors. I think that um, some new things that have come up, just to kind of cover that a little bit first, is that there's an increase in kind of cyber squatting, if you will, like domain copycatting, in that with such a large population of people looking for work, whether people are laid off over the past year because of the economy, or graduates that can't find jobs because the pool of people looking for work is larger. The bad actors are really attacking this, or using it to their advantage, and they're creating copycat websites, looking and feeling just like your own brand. But then, when people go to apply for that job, they may be asked to enter like personal information, potentially a small payment to verify who they are. So it's really easy if without the knowledge, because obviously a lot of these people don't understand that this is not how you apply for a job, or like there is they need a job, so they're maybe overlooking some of the security things that they might think of. And then meanwhile, they're giving their information and their credit card to the bad actor directly. And then that bad actor uses whatever username and password they've entered and starts, trying to access other systems for that same person. Because unfortunately, most people use the same password in multiple systems. And so it's really been a cash cow for a lot of these bad actors, and risen in the last, I'd say 6 months. That's one thing. I think the second thing I would mention is the things that worked really well before are working even better now, partly because of AI. So phishing campaigns are really effective. So 50% of kind of all attacks, successful infiltrations, are really from phishing and command line exploits still. And phishing has been, kind of improved, you would say, because of AI. Like they're able to sort of model how people would speak much better. You'll get people to take action because of that. It sounds like the person who should be emailing you or texting you. And I think exploits as well, there's a lot of things in the news still about, just the interconnected dependencies between systems that we use or third parties that we use. We have to make sure those are patched as well. And I think it's because there's such a large aspect of bad actors, it's increasingly challenging to make sure your whole pipeline, if you will, of vendors are really secure.
It's really interesting what you said about phishing, because that example came to my mind as well, that with AI, it is so easy for AI to mimic our voices, right? And to, I think we've heard those examples where telephone calls would mimic your mother's voice and ask for the bank account number for something. But other than training employees better, I mean, which is my natural instinct, right, is think of training as a way to remediate. What other things are IT and security teams doing in this respect to prevent or have perhaps first or second or third lines of control? Is that a concept in security?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of ties to the zero trust conversation really well, because that really is, the encompassing solution. So zero trust is really a holistic model where, you don't trust no matter where the request is coming from, whether it's externally or internally part of your network. You treat it the same. Essentially, it's an open network, and you need to constantly understand where that traffic and requests are coming from. So it means that you have, you do the due diligence and understand where your data is, how it's segmented, what's private, what's sensitive. You have understanding of your network, what traffic should flow between systems, and then you can detect what shouldn't flow between systems, right? You detect anomalies, right? The same thing related to individuals with different tools. So your people log onto a laptop, they're authenticating via biometrics, or they're logging into a password. Usually there's also a multi-factor authentication on your phones to make sure someone didn't just compromise your laptop. And And then as you continue to access different things, whether it's email and someone's saying, oh, they sent me a document, you go to access that document, you have software on your computer, antivirus software, or other like proactive detection and response software that'll scan that document before it even opens to make sure that it's not a known bad prompt or payload to infect you or affect the company. It also, if it is a legitimate document, it may even ask you to re-authenticate saying, oh, are you really Shane Franklin? And then if you're in a different place because of obviously like hybrid work, you may be in a coffee shop, you may be someplace you're not normally in, like we track and trace all of that information. So it should say like, oh, we've noticed you're on a new network. Is it really your device? Is it really like who you say you are? And then on the IT and security side, we get alerting on that, whether it's through our SIM or other alerts. We detect, Shane's in a new place. Someone tried to log in using Shane's password from a new region that's not normally where he is. And so I think these like zero trust holistic policies and practices of minimizing what people can access, making sure that passwords from systems and applications are short-lived, that are all token-based, that are all have timestamps, those types of things could help mitigate a lot of the command line or phishing activities that may prompt you. But at the end of the day, like humans are still the weakest link in the security puzzle. People clicking on something, opening, downloading. Like humans will still try to figure out, like how to do all of that. And so it really is making sure you have that whole picture to, inform them and protect the company, if you will, if it makes sense.
It's really great to hear the additional protocols in place, and certainly with now that working from home, remote work, we work from anywhere is really a more mainstream model for a lot of organizations today. I think that increases the risk exposure, right? There's more endpoints, certainly that, certainly this is nothing new with, even with, BlackBerries, people have been known in the past to leave them at the bar, and, the password is quite easy to crack, and, the company secrets would be very easily available. So I think you mentioned some of these security risks, but anything else you want to add in terms of remote work security? It's certainly going to be an increasing trend that security teams need to be more aware of as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would just emphasize, like I mentioned it, but as people work from essentially anywhere, really verifying like who you have accessing your systems, your data, your collaboration tools. Even I think that's another piece where maybe I didn't mention before, but like as before, you used to be in the same place or mostly in the same place, maybe a few offices, maybe lots of offices, but most people were together. So even the collaboration tools, as you went on Slack or Teams or whatever you're using, it was still communicating through your own kind of network, if you will. But now, since like there's much more people dispersed and working from anywhere, like understanding what information is being shared on those collaboration tools and then putting the right protocols in place so you protect that is still like really important. So I think a lot of it comes down to those zero trust practices, but then visibility is going to be key, especially as we expand where people can work.
Yeah. And I assume that applies to all the IoT, Internet of Things devices as well, really expanding that zero trust program throughout. So Shane, really I think going back to your first comment about the exposure of data, really understanding the data sensitivity, and there's been a lot of high profile data breaches in many organizations. So what shifts have you observed in how organizations are approaching their incident responses and data breach mitigation processes?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to investing the time up front, to prioritizing that, like the data protection and going through the larger effort to categorize your data. So you can't, it's challenging to protect all of your data, especially like we discussed, like the data explosions happening, like you have a large amount of data. I think really focusing on like what is your sensitive data and what is your non-sensitive data, and then putting the policies in place to protect especially that sensitive data, ensuring that you have, the teams have backups, the companies have backups in place, air gapping those backups so that way the source really can't talk to the destination, and bad actors can't like hop over and infect and completely encrypt and take control of your backups as well. I think validating those recovery efforts, I think a lot of companies, they go through the first step, or they skip maybe to backups, but don't categorize. And then they don't invest the effort to validate those backups. So I think it's really those three pieces are critical, like one or two without the third, is going to be a challenge. So I've seen an increase in that.
Why is that the case, though, that people skip the verification piece of it? Is it's too much effort, or do they move on to the next security breach? I'm just
I think it is a large effort, right? You have to have a place to restore that. Like you can't just validate it in place per se. So especially as we have large amounts of data restoring like a few terabytes of a backup, like you need to run tests on that. It's just not as prioritized as you would hope, I think, with a lot of organizations, where if they just invest in that and then air gap where they restore that, they'd be a lot better prepared potentially if they have a data breach or a breach on their network and something unfortunately gets encrypted and held hostage, or ransomed, like, you have someplace else you go that you can trust. So it really comes down to prioritization compared to other efforts. So,
okay. So looking ahead, Shane, what do you anticipate will be the most impactful trends in information technology and security over the next few years, and how can organizations prepare for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it a bit. I definitely think the data explosion, especially around sensitive data, will continue to increase exponentially. I think we're only at the beginning of that explosion. When you think of all of the additional like biometrics that are happening as well, like even you can go to Whole Foods now and like pay with your palm. Like there's such a large aspect of biometrics that are becoming part of how we operate, whether it's your finger, whether it's your face. And all of that is sensitive information. Like it has part of you in that. Figuring out how we protect that, I think, over time as that keeps increasing, and what risk tolerance we have for sharing our biometrics or personal information, I think really is going to be a challenge. It's an opportunity as well, because obviously with AI and even leveraging those biometrics or that large amount of data, there's a huge opportunity for productivity. But then we have to just understand the risks. You can't, I don't think as a company, you won't be able to operate without leveraging AI. You can't say like nobody in my company can use AI. I want to incorporate it in my product. It's really about how do I leverage it in a way that keeps my data safe, and employees safe along the way.
So I know we are nearing almost the end of our podcast today, Shane, and I wanted to ask if you could share just a few key takeaways for our listeners on how building a secure IT ecosystem is important for their organization.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think like just to hit on the zero trust again. I think that is probably one of the biggest things, or at least even creating a holistic strategy first, and then figuring out the pieces you can implement the quickest. You don't have to implement it all at once. I think the pieces that you can implement the fastest will still give the biggest bang for your organization, for your risk, avoiding the risk that potentially is out there. I think that people still are the weakest links, so investing time and training your people and making sure you have good systems that could protect your people, such as we talked about the phishing and other things that can monitor network traffic and anomalies to help protect them as well. I also think with the growth and explosion of data and sensitive data, especially, putting really good data lifecycle rules in place is probably a low lift, in the sense that coming up with an understanding from your key stakeholders, understanding like how much data you need to store, the timeliness or how long you need to store that data, and then putting that in place so you have less sensitive data and only the critical data you need would probably reduce your risk footprint as well, because obviously if you have less data, then you have less exposure to those risks.
And that's certainly consistent with a lot of the privacy regulations where store the minimal amount of data, data minimization.
Right.
I think it goes hand in hand with your concept of reducing the risk exposure. In case of any cybersecurity attacks, you're not keeping all your crown jewels
Right.
in the same place.
Yep.
So